Hey everyone, this is Brian from Provision Studios, and today I'm making a video about my recent experience with the Zhiyun Crane S3 when paired with the Canon VIXIA HF G60 camcorder. I first would like to actually start off by saying Happy New Year to everyone. I was off the last couple days from work to celebrate the holiday season with my wife and my son. My son's been off for 2 weeks from school, so me and him got to hang out, and we went on a couple hiking trips. And while we were out, I brought the Crane S3 and the G60 out with us while we went hiking, and I basically ran the camera and the gimbal through their paces just to get a better understanding of what the capabilities were of both the camera and the gimbal. So, if anyone has followed my previous videos, you know that one of my problems with the G60 was the poor stabilization that comes on this camcorder. Outside of that, I love this camera, the dual pixel autofocus, the the 10-bit 422 recording out of the HDMI is awesome. It can record in C-Log 3, which is a huge bonus. That is on the firmware update that was added to this camera. So prior to that, this could not record in C-Log, but now it is capable of doing that. And there are several other awesome features that this camera has. The ND filters is another one. I go over all this, the features of this camera in depth in several other videos that I will link here. And so this is a really good camera outside of the image stabilization, which is really not good at all for a camcorder. In my opinion, anything that is meant to be carried, where you point in and shoot, that's the main function of the camera. You should be able to capture stabilized footage in camera. Now this does have onboard image stabilization, but I really don't. If this camera isn't on a tripod, I just really don't see the footage you shoot with it handheld really being that good. So enter the Zhiyun Crane S3. I got this via rental from lensrentals.com. It's a week rental. I've had it for a couple days now, and I was able to take it out with me hiking, mounting the G60 on it, so pairing them both together and seeing what kind of results I could get. Now, the max payload on this gimbal is 14.3 pounds or 6.5 kilograms. So it's more than capable of handling the G60. So what I wanted to experiment with was out on the hiking trail was, could the gimbal capture the footage, or could it help reduce the shaking that I was getting doing handheld footage on the camera without I guess, what's the best way to say it, without compromising the realness of the hike, you know. And I'll say this: I'm gonna put some footage on here to show you guys what I was able to capture. I think it does a great job. I think this gimbal really is an awesome piece of gear. At this weight max payload that it has, the 14.3 pounds, you can put some really awesome heavy gear on this and it'll handle it. The Canon G60 being a camcorder is kind of awkward in that it's not like your regular kind of camera. But I will say that this did handle it. It handled it well. So to set it up, I shot some footage in auto mode on the camera. So it was in full auto, shooting at 1080p, 24 frames per second. And the gimbal, I had it in several different modes. One of the main points of the gimbal, though, is the strength of your motors. I had that set to auto, and what that does is you put your camera onto the gimbal. You unlock all of the motors, all three motors, and you hit auto mode, and it calibrates the gimbal's motor strength to your rig, in this case the G60, and that's what I went with. So for the first portion of the hike, I had the G60 in auto mode, and about halfway through, I wanted to switch the camera to C-Log, start capturing it in C-Log. So I switched to manual mode, went to C-Log as the recording spec. I went with 1080p, 24 frames per second, 1/48 shutter. I had my aperture at f8.0. I had 9 dB of gain, as that is the default feature on the C-Log color profile. I used a daylight white balance, and again, the camera, the image stabilizer on the camera was turned off because it was mounted onto the gimbal. Again, the gimbal, throughout the entire hike, I used the auto motor feature. And when I started the hike out, I used pan follow mode. That worked real well on the hike. And I'll have several clips right here that you'll be able to see how the pan follow mode worked. I did start out the hike, though, for very briefly in lock mode, and I did not really I liked what it could do. It's just it's not for a hike. It was the wrong mode to choose for the hike. And it constantly required, I don't want to say fidgeting with the gimbal, but it required constant recalibrating my center, or my focus, because I was on a trail. The trail's not straight. When you put it in lock mode, whatever direction you're pointed at, that's what it's locking on. So it did that. It did that well. That just was the wrong mode for what I was doing. Then I switched to pan follow. Pan follow is what I used, I'd say, about 90% of the hike. It really was the perfect mode for what I was doing and certainly for my style. I then switched to follow mode, which did really good. That was actually one of the more true ways of filming on a hike, because you've got basically full range of motion with the gimbal. So you can pan up, you can pan down, you can go left, go right, and the gimbal's following all of your motions, and it did a really good job with that. And then I used POV mode, which was really, really good. It does the tilt axis and everything, and it really was a good way to do a hike. Now, all of the modes worked about as well as I would expect. The reason why pan follow mode proved to be the one I used the most is because it was the easiest of all the modes on my body. This is not a small rig. Putting this camera with this gimbal, it weighs a lot. And being out on a hiking trail, having to carry this rig and shooting the whole time. I never turned the camera off. I never set the gimbal down and really took a break from it. I pretty much started this 2-mile hike, and it was an intermediate strength hike. Or intermediate strength. It was an intermediate skilled hike. So there were a lot of dips and valleys and peaks and along the way. I was not hiking on a flat trail. This had several features on it that made it. I had to pay attention to how I was walking, where I was stepping. Anyway, pan follow allowed me many times to carry the gimbal with one hand or switch hands. Follow mode, I had to consistently have two hands on the gimbal to control it. With lock mode, I had to have two hands on it and use the joystick down here to almost constantly center the end of the trail in my viewfinder. POV mode is a completely full body experience as you're using it. You're putting your whole body sort of into the control of the shot. So and that is why I say to you that the pan follow mode was the best for what I was doing, because again, I was able to use a one hand for the majority of it, and even when I had two hands on it, I was able to hold it pretty steady without having to twist and do all this turning, because that wasn't even a feature of that mode. So that being said, the Crane 3S performed admirably. The battery life on this thing is crazy great. It has a 12-hour battery life, and I was out using this to its full capabilities on this trail, and I never even went down one battery notch on the LED screen. So or the LCD display. There's really no negatives for this, because I knew what I was getting into. In order to be able to put the G60 on a gimbal that was going to be able to properly hold hold this up and give me the opportunity to capture good footage with it, I knew I was going to have a heavy gimbal. I mean, that's just that's part of it, and this is a heavy rig. So that's not a knock on it. It's just, it is what it is. I really do love the features of this. It is a very affordable gimbal for what you get. I think it's potentially one of the most well-priced pieces of gear on the market in regards to video production. So you really can't go wrong with this. There were some things with the G60 that were revealed to me with the trail shooting. There are some inadequacies with this camera that are just, I guess it's just inherent in this brand of, or this package. I would imagine if I went out and spent $5,000 on the camera, some of the things that I was seeing, the aberrations, it hunted for focus, which was one thing that I couldn't get this to do in my yard. Well, it did it the last couple days. I was in extreme conditions. I was in dark parts of the woods, and then come out to clearings where it was bright sun. And there were points during the shoot that the Canon G60 would hunt for focus based on the difference in the settings that we were in. As stable as the footage was, I still noticed some warping on some of the clips, which the stabilizer is off on the camera. So that's telling me that the warping that I was seeing on this camera and on the Canon G50 was not from the stabilizer, which is what I read online. There's something about the way that this interprets footage, whether it's on a gimbal or you're using the onboard stabilizer. When this is made to move a certain way, I guess the sensors on the camera interpret it as you're trying to stabilize the footage. Therefore, it does something with the sensor, or it does something with the digital file that causes warping on the edges. I don't know why it does that. If I had the image stabilizer off on it, it should not have been doing that, but it did anyway. It's not something that I would say is the end of the world for the G60. This is an awesome camera. I still say that this camera is an A camera. You put on a tripod, you set it up for your exposure, for your shot, you hit record, and this thing is awesome. But there are some things about this camera in regards to stabilization that has problems, even on this really good stabilizer. So the Crane 3S is, as far as I'm concerned, is a knock it out of the park home run. For the cost of this, what you get is you could easily charge twice the amount of money, in my opinion. You can rig this thing up to where it can control all the facets of your camera. It can control your the mode you're shooting in on your camera. It can you can get it to start shooting a video. You can get it to take pictures. Anything you can do with your camera with certain brands. Go to the website, please. And if you're interested in this, please go to the website do your research, see if your camera's on the list. They have an entire list of all these different types of cameras that can go on here, and it can be controlled by the gimbal. The G60 is not one of them, but that is not a deal breaker. So there were several spots in the day that I was able to shoot with this camera on this gimbal that I thought it was really good footage. If this camera is not going to be on a tripod, then I would say it should be on a gimbal like the Crane 3S. The G50 and the G60 still are not cameras that I would recommend to anyone that is using predominantly handheld technique. Get a gimbal, get this camera, and I think you'll have a good kit to go take out and get some good footage. A good rig, that is. I'm running out of time with this gimbal. I've only got a couple days left. I lost a couple days because of rain earlier in the week, so I'm down to it. I go back to work on Monday, and then I think I have to mail this back on Wednesday. So I really am running out of time with this. I guess the question comes down: will I buy the Crane 3S, or will I move on to exploring other options? I do believe I can justify getting the Crane 3S for my studio, especially if this is the camera that I am using as my main camera. Because again, if I'm not on a tripod, then I really wouldn't use this camera unless it was on a stabilizer. So I think that kind of answers my question. If you guys have any questions about what I've discussed here today, or if you've seen any footage that I've shared in this video that you have questions about, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below. You can always email me at bbuck822@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you are interested in exploring what lensrentals.com has to offer, you can email me at the email address I just gave you, and I can send you a code that'll give you $25 off your first rental. So if that's something you're interested in exploring, again, just email me that. Or you can even leave your email address in the comment section below, and I'll email you that code. Other than that, that pretty much does it for this video. Again, I hope everyone is having a great holiday season so far. I know we're sort of coming to an end of that with the New Year, New Year's Eve the other day, and today being New Year's Day. But I just want to stress to everyone, I hope that everyone has an awesome 2022 with all your hopes and dreams coming true. If I can do anything to help you to advance your talents or your skills, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know what I can do to help. Until I see you guys in the next video, hope you guys have a blessed day and a wonderful time exploring your audio and video out here in the world. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye now.